Hi guys, John here again with another interview. Today I'm with Vince McLeod, and he is an author and all-round very knowledgeable guy. He is runs VJM Publishing, I believe it is, but he will let you tell me if I'm wrong or something as you know as time goes on. And I met him through Bob Dub, and we did a show together, one of Roger's shows together, a few weeks ago, and we got on really well. Found him very interesting, and now here I am talking to him myself. So over to you, buddy.
Hello, John, and hello, Internet. It's good to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you about how I really came to spirituality. It was a long and torturous journey. I was born into a typical Anglosphere sort of family here in New Zealand, where I'm from, South Island of New Zealand, 1981, and nobody in my family believed in any kind of religion or spirituality at all. In fact, they thought it was ridiculous. My grandfather, especially, and he had the biggest influence on raising me. And he thought, particularly, the Noah's Ark story was an example of just how ridiculous religion is. And he said religion is such a thing that humans used to need back in the day when we were ignorant, and we don't need it anymore. So I grew up and went to school. I started getting into science, studied science a lot. I was especially interested in astronomy when I was younger, and then later on interested in biology. And as I was studying materialist science, I got into the materialist atheist paradigm that gets taught, where basically we're told life's utterly meaningless. We're just an accidental, really fluke creation that's just happened to have evolved, and we're all going to die. And when we do, our consciousness will be extinguished because the brain generates consciousness, and therefore, life is essentially meaningless and pointless. And that was the narrative in which essentially I'd grown up.
Yeah.
Now, when I was at primary school, we had religious instruction up until 1990. I think they got rid of that in New Zealand. But when I was 8 years old, I was at primary school here in Nelson, and we had a religious instruction class where a man a man and a woman, they came to talk to us about Christianity. And the man said to the classroom, this classroom of 8 year olds, that he would have killed himself if it hadn't been for discovering Christianity. And I was 8 years old. I was from quite a difficult family. I was used to old people, adults playing mind games. And I recognized this as an example of manipulation. And I thought to myself, what sort of religious tradition would lay a mind trip like that on an 8 year old child? And I realized from a very early age that it was sick. It was a sick way of thinking that led to this kind of thing. So I continued along with my atheism and my materialism. I went to university. I did a couple of degrees in psychology, and I read a lot of Richard Dawkins. And reading a lot of Richard Dawkins, because I was learning to study psychology from an evolutionary psychological perspective. Richard Dawkins talks a lot about in his book Climbing Mount Improbable. He talks a lot about the conditions that are necessary for evolution, and he says that in order for any feature, anything about the human animal, in order for it to have evolved, there must be what's called a phenotypic expression of that feature. And by phenotypic expression, he means something in the physical world, something in the material world that the process of evolution can act upon. Because evolution needs either natural selection or artificial selection or sexual selection in order to operate. So it can only operate on something that has a materialist form. And I thought to myself, consciousness does not have a materialist form. Therefore, couldn't have evolved because there's no phenotypic expression that consciousness could. There's no reason. There's nothing that evolution could select for. So I talked to the other people in my psychology department when I was finishing up my master's degree, and they were all very much of the opinion that that line of reasoning was flawed, and that the brain definitely does generate consciousness. And I thought to myself, that doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make sense. So I finished my master's degree, and then there were a couple, 2 or 3 years of traveling, just traveling the world. And then I came back to New Zealand, and on Boxing Day, December the 26th, 2008, I ended up taking a very heavy dose of psilocybin mushrooms. And upon reaching the high of this dose, which took about 2 hours, 1.5 hours, 2 hours to really reach the peak. Upon reaching the peak, I had an experience that is actually very similar to the experience that David Icke writes about, where he took ayahuasca and was able to, what he felt was download some information from essentially from the mind of God
Mm.
above the human being. So he was able to channel some information, and the same thing happened to me. I realized that it was as if I had taken such a heavy dose that I'd left the material world completely and was just in the presence of a divine being, of a God that I recognized as just a ball of white light. And in coming into close contact with this divinity, I realized that the materialist narrative is completely untrue. In fact, consciousness is the prima materia. Consciousness is actually the original thing from which the entire material world has come, and not the other way around, which is the mainstream materialist, atheistic, scientific paradigm that
Mm.
basically everybody in elite circles in New Zealand is in. So, upon realizing this, my life was completely transformed. I realized that I was actually a spiritual being having a human experience and not the other way around. But to give you
Mm.
an example of how deep I was into the materialism, the friend of mine who gave me the magic mushrooms, before I'd taken them, I had complained of feeling a bit depressed. And his girlfriend asked me, how was my connection with the Great Spirit? And involuntarily, I just started laughing because it seemed like such a ridiculous
Yeah.
question. You know, depression's obviously a condition of the brain, and not anything to do with whether or not you're connected to a great spirit. That's just ridiculous talk. So I thought until I took the psilocybin mushrooms, and then I started to realize some other things. Now, in the years after taking these mushrooms, what I realized from doing the research that I had done was that it was actually very common in the ancient European traditions to do magic mushrooms and to likewise have been presented with visions of a world that you're not used to seeing. I learned that in the Eleusinian Mysteries, which were very popular in ancient Greece, the Eleusinian Mysteries were a festival that took place once every year near Eleusis, which is now in Turkey, and they would participate in a ritual wherein they took what was called a kykeon, which was a some kind of drink, and as Plato writes about in Phaedrus, the kykeon of the Eleusinian Mysteries is somehow able to induce visions of worlds beyond. And what I come to realize from my research was that this kykeon was probably a psychedelic mushroom tea with their alcohol or something similar in it. So what I realized was the insights I'd come to have on these magic mushrooms were not individual to me at all, but were actually part of a great perennial tradition that had that goes back perhaps 20,000 years in human history. So having come to understand that, I felt quite normal having come to believe the things that I now believe about spirituality. So yeah, that's basically my life history story. How I
Mm.
switched from materialist to a believer in divinity. And like so many people in the Western world today, it was mostly a matter of psychedelics. Although
Yeah.
I must emphasize that I had already primed my mind to believe in the psychedelic revelations because I realized that the evolutionary narrative didn't make sense. And because I realized it didn't make sense, I was ready to get the good from the mushrooms.
So how? So that was an awakening for you then, in a sense. That's how I would term it, as an awakening when you,
Absolutely.
yeah, when you
Yeah.
know. Now, how have you gone forward from there, spiritually? Like, how has it? Do you still do like mushroom stuff like that, or have you just opened yourself up in other ways? How have you gone from there? Because obviously
I
that's a
still do
big, it's
the
a major change in your
yeah.
life. It's a big like revelation. Wow, you know, your
Oh,
your
absolutely.
perception. Sorry.
I think it's actually a bigger change than even being born. You know, I
Yeah.
say that to people that taking psychedelics was bigger than being born, and people say, "Well, that's ridiculous because you're only born once, right?" But if you realize that reincarnation and karma are true things, then I was born perhaps a million times, and in
Yeah.
not every one of those lives would I have taken some magic mushrooms and sort of woken up. So actually, waking up is much more rare than being born. So
Yeah.
that's something that you should be grateful for, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, learning gratitude was a part of that spiritual practice because what happened to me is it's not that I instantly became enlightened on the magic mushrooms. I just realized that there was more to things. I still had to do all the work.
Mm.
I still had to do all the work of meditating, and I still had to do all the work of challenging my existing preconceptions and so on. So it did take about 8 years before I was really comfortable with what I'd come to realize.
Right. Because after talking to quite a few people in the interviews and stuff, um, an awakening usually is to me is like you reconnect. You've never disconnected, but you sort of reconnect then to your what do you call it, your silver cord. But silver cord is connects you to the other side. Now some people are able, like two ladies I interviewed, who actually are related to each other, who kept their sort of spirituality from the early age. They kept it right throughout their life. They were never awakened. They kept it all alive. But that's very rare. As most people, including myself, I've had some sort of awakening, and I did it through a religious a group I went into because I was trying to like see a girl that was in there, as you do, and and I saw these people had something, and I didn't know what it was. I just felt like a welling of joy inside me, and I went from there. But before that, I was very materialistic. I was terrified of dying. I think used to lie in bed every night, terrified of it. I was all for like the latest gizmos and stuff like that. I thought that would make basically you're looking for something, and you probably were the same. You
Yeah,
probably were looking for something and you didn't know what it was. And most people, a lot of people out there, are still the same. They're looking for it. They don't know what it is they're looking for, but they're basically looking to reconnect, so to speak. They don't fully sever it, but it becomes like bogged down in amongst your lifetime of emotions and bad experiences, good experiences even. It's just bogged down there, and you've become like open to it through the way that you did. But other people, there was one lady I interviewed who had Reiki done on her, and it opened it up like that, and she saw a dead father in the same room. And it opened it that instantly. It opened it right up to her. But other people, it's everyone's got a different awakening story. It's really it's fascinating. I find it. And when you do awaken, you can like awaken once, or you can carry on awakening. Different stages. This different. Um, in my experience, for me anyway, that's what happened to me. Not everyone, but that's happened to me. It's a lot of awakenings, different types, very unsettling each time. But when you get through
yeah,
it, it's just like well worth it. It's well worth it. This is my opinion. So
yeah. I've also had that feeling of lying awake at night in a state of heightened anxiety on account of
yeah,
the fact that I knew that I was inevitably going to die,
yeah,
and
that's what
I
happens
had
to me.
been
I was
like
like,
this.
yeah,
Yeah, ever since I was 6 years old. My great grandmother died, and we were quite close because she was really the most stable influence in my early childhood. And when she died, I realized that we're actually all going to die.
yeah,
My grandparents told me, yeah, that's going to happen to all of us. It'll happen to us too. It'll happen to you. And I started lying awake thinking, and I thought,
yeah,
well, when you die, then it's going to be like being buried in the ground in a coffin. You're going to be cold, and you're going to be dark, and you're going to be looking at the darkness, and you won't be able to get out or move your body. And that's what I thought death would be
yeah,
because I identified so closely with my body, you see. And I would lie awake and I think, what's the point of all this if you're just going to die? What a cruel joke this life is, that we're born just to die for no purpose at all.
yeah,
And I think that's the thing that also helped prime me to psychedelics. I think you and I share that with a lot of other people who have had an awakening experience, and that we've primed ourselves in advance by realizing that the mainstream narrative doesn't really work.
yeah. I agree with even though I became awakened through a religion, I realized very soon after this it wasn't for me. It was too restrictive. It was too like. Um, don't get me wrong. I don't disrespect anyone who finds that people do become awakened through religion. It's got its good points. It has got its good, but for me, it was no, not for me. It wasn't for me. Just me as an individual. And I,
Yeah.
when I was coming, I went really deep into myself when I was after I became awakened, and I was hallucinating. I was seeing like demons, angels over here, and I wasn't taking no drugs. I wasn't. I was doing nothing. I wasn't drinking. I was doing nothing. But I was seeing all sorts of stuff. Thankfully, that sort of stopped. I mean, my mind's eye, I see loads of stuff now, but I know it's real because that's something he's developed over a long time, which I know now never to really ignore it anymore because I know when it's my mind's eye and when my mind's playing tricks on me. I know the difference now, but that's just taken a lot of years of experience to know that. But so do you still use psychedelics now, or do you stop using them, or what's your view on
I
that
still
now?
use them. I still use them occasionally,
Yeah,
but as Alan Watts said, when you get the message, you can hang up the phone. So it was really only a few doses before I really pretty much understood what was going on.
yeah,
And then I knew I didn't need more psychedelics. I mean, psychedelics aren't like certain other substances where you take some and then you have a compulsive need to take some more pretty
yeah,
much as soon as the high wears off. If you take magic mushrooms, for example, it's often that you don't even want to use them again for another 6 months, and that was how it was in my case. But what happened for me was you can become aware on account of having had a psychedelic experience, but then what happened to me was that I seemed to sink back into the material world the more I
yeah,
lived, because as time passed, I ate more cheeseburgers and I smoked more tobacco and I drank more alcohol and all these things, and then I came back to the material world without really realizing, because it's such a slow and insidious, well, it's a subtle progress. I won't say insidious because
yeah,
I'm not anti the material world. I just recognize it for what it is. And so for me now, it's a matter of trying to stay mindful 24/7. Like I'm trying to approach my entire life from the perspective that consciousness is the prima materia, and that I'm a fragment
yeah,
of God's consciousness, just having this human experience, rather than a body that's going to grow old and rot.
yeah. Oh, that's a good perspective. I tend to be. I had another awakening last week, which I not really spoke. I'm not going to say on camera. I'll tell you off camera, but real major one. And it like floored me. It was like wow, and it led to me communicating with my higher self for like an hour, for about an hour and afterwards, and
Wow.
it was like really mind blowing. I will just say I did sort of discover the meaning of spiritual warfare for me because I never really fully understood it. That was part of what happened. I was like shown it exactly what it was, and it was like, wow, it just really like mind blowing. And it's knocked me for six. It really has. I haven't been able to sleep properly. Last 2 nights I've started to get my sleep pattern back again, but it's just been like really, as most awakenings do, they can really unsettle you. I did a video about it the other day because I wanted people to understand that it's not all like rainbows and unicorns or anything when you awaken. You know what I mean? Sometimes it can be
Yeah.
like fucking hard. You know what I mean? You think you're going through
Yeah.
you're losing your mind sometimes because you don't know what's really happening. But
Well, people act like you're losing your mind too. If you
you
try
do
and tell them
sometimes, yeah.
about spirituality, you say,
I,
I'm
I
no longer afraid of death because I believe in God. People
yeah,
will say, well, you've just gone mad.
yeah. No, no. Some people do, and I actually made a video saying what I've just saying. I'm not going to say on camera now. I made it, but on my channel, 24 hours, not one person looked at it, and the people always look at my videos, and I thought that's an omen. That's an omen. I got to remove this, so I took it down, deleted it
Mm.
off the. I thought people. It's obvious the force don't want me to share what I was going to share about it yet. And then I had the message. And then afterwards, it's because when you share stuff like that, you sort of give away a tiny bit of yourself, so to speak, when you share an experience like that. And because it was such a big experience, and because my energy levels are so low at the moment, it was like show no, just maybe show one person here and there. It's fine, but not to a bigger audience because you're not ready to deal with it, the outcome of it yet. And so I thought
Mm.
that's fine. I can live with that. So that's what I decided to do for now. Just um, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
actually ended up in a mental institution for 10 days,
all right,
6 years after taking the mushrooms,
really,
because I just couldn't find really a solution. And afterwards, I have a solution in the form of my philosophy that I call elementalism. But
yeah,
immediately after taking the shrooms, I was in a very high state of anxiety. For example, that's why I started smoking tobacco. Was because I would sit there and I'd think to myself, everything I used to believe that was true was
Mm.
actually wrong. And I thought to myself, well, that means I can't know anything.
Yeah.
And that was a really shocking realization for me, because I came to understand that I didn't actually know what to do in any situation. I didn't know right from wrong anymore, and that was so shocking for me that my hands started to shake. Once I realized, also, I thought about how I knew that death was an illusion, and
Yeah.
that was going to continue, because I'd kind of lived a bit of a satanistic life up until this mushroom experience. I'd kind of thought, well, you can pretty much do what you want because the slate will be wiped clean upon death, and
Mm.
after that point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But once I realized that there is actually an afterlife, in the sense that reincarnation is true,
Mm.
then I had to start thinking about karma as well. And that's when things started to get really complicated for me as a former materialist atheist. So it is a huge shock to have an awakening. It can literally turn your entire life upside down. Because after 6 years of wrestling with these ideas, I eventually found myself completely unable to sleep at all. And so I started becoming psychotic, and
Yeah.
yeah, ended up in a psychiatric unit. But I came out of there, and since then I've taken much more care to do as much research as I possibly can into the nature of spirituality, so that I could truly understand what I was going through. But it meant that I couldn't go back to, for example, like a normal day-to-day job, a 9 to 5 job, because I was just too out there now. I felt like an alien from another dimension.
Yeah.
And that's especially true when I tried to talk about spirituality to people who weren't interested. And I'd say, yeah, I believe in an afterlife. And they say, well, you can't really be confident about that because that's just faith, you know? And I say, no, I don't have faith. I've seen God on a psychedelic, and I know that that's how it is, you know?
Yeah.
I know it like I know the sun's going to rise in the morning. And people would say, well, you're a psychotic now, you know, you don't have evidence for this, and you're delusional.
Mm.
So it's hard when you're from a society that can't see much of a difference between a spiritual experience and a spiritual emergency, like Stanislav Grof used to talk about.
Mm. I had this vision when you were talking about awakening, of like us living like in a glass like dome, and when you awaken, it's like you break it, something, and all of a sudden you're connected with the outside source, and you're still like in your dome. You think, oh shit, but there's more out there now, and it's like it's really like ah. I just share this experience with you. People who watched my videos will obviously already know this, but a while back, my mum passed away when I was 17 in front of me, and uh, what happened? I saw on Facebook, it was or something, someone saying ask for a sign, because people are saying about they were grieving, so ask for a sign. So for some reason, that's one day I thought, oh, I'm going to ask for a sign. So I went out of my kitchen, sat in my chair in the kitchen. I asked for a sign, and I envisioned a hug. I don't know why, it was in my mind, a hug, and I actually felt someone embrace me, and I
Oh,
felt like my
wow.
mum actually hugged me, and I thought,
Yeah, yeah,
oh my god, I've been grieving like for like 40 years, and I didn't need to grieve because you've always here. You're here, and I knew she
yeah,
was there, and it was like
yeah,
I had 3 days of motions were like crazy. You can imagine the next 3 days.
yeah,
I actually connected to her, but my connection to the other side wasn't so good then. But I did connect to her that evening, very briefly. I can't remember what happened now, but I did. I know I did.
yeah,
I saw her like an energy, and then I saw her. She was looked at her peak when she was 30s, something like that. And I say 3 4 days of like really upheaval, but the end result is now my grief has gone from like gone down say to about 10%. It was like about 70 80% because it's like 40 years. Now it's right down. It's
yeah.
because of that experience, and that was another awakening for me. Another one. I've had different stages. I've had a healing awakening. I've had a medium awakening, the one I had last week as well. There's been at least 4 or 5 different stages of awakening. Like it's like you
Wow.
get used to sort of being back in your goldfish bowl, and you just reach out and get a little bit from the spiritual realm, bring it back in. You think, oh, okay, that's good. But no, they have to open it, make the glass a bit bigger so you get a bit more coming in. You think, oh, God. And you've got to try and get that balance again. It's like, you know what I mean? That's just like for me, you know? It's good. I wouldn't change it for the world, but it's like sometimes you're like, you feel like you're a madman, you know? Sometimes, you know? But I wouldn't change it for the world. And doing these interviews has been amazing. It's really helped me a lot, awakened me a lot as well. I've learned so much and met, you know, interesting guys like yourself. Really, you know, I made a lot of friends as well through it. So it's definitely, and this was a call in to do it. This was a push to do this. All these interviews have been, I was shown to do it, and I have. That's the reason I've started doing them. It wasn't my channel
Nice.
was never about these before. It's just something that's happened on my podcast and stuff. But
I like talking about spirituality because I like to let people know that they're not alone.
yeah,
Because when I was younger, I didn't have the internet, right? The internet didn't really come around until I was like 20. So I'd pretty
yeah,
much grown up in a state of not ever speaking to anybody about any of these spiritual thoughts about death or the nature of life or the meaning of life. And I'd come to think that perhaps that was just one of my, it was all just like the sort of thing that it was just for me, you know?
yeah,
Other people didn't really care because the people I spoke to didn't really care. But the great thing about shows like this is that they can really reach out to people like who I would have been, who would have felt like they were alone and having
mm,
these spiritual thoughts, but can listen to other people who can say they've been through it as well. You know, and we're not crazy for believing in a life beyond the material world, but it's actually perfectly logical and rational if you think it, if you really think it through.
mm,
Plus, it was also native European beliefs. Like if you read Timaeus by Plato, he talks about reincarnation and karma as if they were established facts, and
yeah,
it really was just something that was believed by basically everybody uh, before spiritual warfare really became a factor, and people started to withhold knowledge about reincarnation and karma. I thought it was interesting when you were speaking to Michael Paul, and he was talking about the various rituals he'd been through as part of Freemasonry.
oh yeah,
I understand that's because it's the European traditions were basically made illegal in the dark during the Dark Ages, and so the Eleusinian mysteries were destroyed, for example, and so it was a way of maintaining those. This is a story I've heard was that the Freemasonry was a way about of maintaining these traditions in a world where they were heavily prosecuted.
mm. Yeah. I looked into the Freemasonry a bit. I just sort of was interested to find out about it. Not interested in joining it, just interested to find out. And put it this way, the later stages of the level 30 upwards, it was like, wow, this is really freaky. It's like what I read, I don't know if this is true, it's probably Freemasons watching this thinking, oh, this is a lot of rubbish. But what I read is they're taught all from the beginning, they're worshipping God and stuff like that. But the later stages, they're sort of taught, well, no, it's not God you've been worshipping, it's Satan you're worshipping all along, you just didn't know. And that's what the later stages are. And this, I think it's something like the 31st stage or something like you've got to break 6 of the 10 commandments or something like that. I can't remember now. It's all stuff like that. And I also read that the old president Jimmy Carter, he was one that was supposed to have fully mastered Freemason again. Freemason. I don't know enough about it, but
Mm.
I sort of uh, how can I say, with my path, when I start looking into stuff like that in the past and stuff like that, it's just I get told, no, you don't need to look at that. That's the past now. Look at the future. He said,
Yeah,
look, think about the future. What future you're going to leave for your children and Keith Richards? You know, that's what I get told now.
yeah, that's right. Well, that's one of the reasons why I think talking about it is so good.
Yeah,
Because if you really think what sort of future we're leaving to our children, it's probably going to be a big pile of plastic and materialist garbage.
yeah,
So, really, I think one of the best things we can do is help normalize the idea that spirituality is legitimate.
yeah,
Spirituality is not mental illness. It's not people. You don't have to be irrational to be spiritual. You can be perfectly logical. And if young people understood this more, I think things would be a lot easier. Things certainly would have been a lot easier for me because
yeah,
it's no fun at all lying in bed until the sun comes up in the morning because you're so worried about death. It
Yeah.
just seems so inevitable, and everything seems so meaningless. It's a kind of torture
Yeah.
to have to go through this lack of knowledge. Like
Mm.
in the Corpus Americum, they say that knowledge of God is the most valuable thing. Well, it follows from that, I think, that if you're born into a state of extreme spiritual ignorance, that you are in a state of poverty, even if you have
Mm.
material wealth.
Mm.
Now, I certainly wouldn't trade any amount of material wealth. I'm not particularly wealthy, but if someone
No.
would say, well, I'll give you $1 billion, but in return, you're not allowed to ever speak about spirituality to anybody again, I'd say no.
No.
That's not for me.
No. Just
That's why I'd never joined the Freemasons, because they make you swear oaths to keep secrets, and that's the same reason why Socrates never joined the Freemasons, because he didn't want any restrictions on being able to speak.
mm.
I like being able to speak in shows like this, so that's why I'd never swear an oath to keep a secret.
Yeah. No. No. Same here. Yeah. So wow. Yeah, I was exactly the same as you. If you're scared of dying, be anxious about it. I was absolutely petrified, like, exactly the same. And it's through that my awakening that it just went. Never was scared
Yeah,
about it again. In fact, that I almost like now. Sometimes when I'm in a bad mood, I think I look forward to it. Like now, you know what I mean? It's happening. But funny how it changes you. But I have been sort of guided more recently to help children who they're connected because they're the ones um, they're the valuable ones in a sense. If they can not sever their if they can sort of be open to their connection, not sure they have to go to, not saying they have to go to church and they have to do this or do that. If they can stay open to their connection, their lives are going to be so much more enriched later on if they can do it. And it's the amount of people I've had to help, children, I've had to help, illnesses, bugs, all the time. Every time I go to help them, all I have to do is help them come in line with their connection. That's all I have to do, and then they're suddenly better again. And I've also been told when I do this, every time he keeps coming up to me, YouTube is what's damaging them because their parents are letting them go on YouTube, watching whatever they want, seeing damaging stuff on there, and it's making them go like that, and making them like get scared, and they that's what's happening. That's why I keep, even though I'm on YouTube, yeah, but that's
yeah,
but part of the reason I'm on here is to be a message in the dark, so to speak. You know, on a social platform, people perhaps looking for some sort of answers might find it through some of my videos or something. That's what I'm doing it for. That's what I've been told I'm doing it for, and I get pushed to do it all the time. Even to share my videos on platforms, and there's no actual value for me to share on these platforms. I mean, no, got to do it. You might see just that one person might see such and such a video, like this video, sake of argument, and they might think, oh no, maybe I'm looking for something. I'm looking for something like that. You just don't know. You know what I mean? And that's what's
yeah,
become more valuable to me as I've gone on. Is not about the views, not about the watch time. If I get one person that says, "Oh my god, that video really struck a chord for me," that's it. I'm like, yes, that's what I've done that video for, and I'm really happy. You know, I really, that's pushes me on. That's what pushes me on now. And because I did a video called "Know Your Worth" the other day, and a lady messaged back and she said, "I really needed to hear this today." She said, in a big long story about what's going on in her life, and I thought, wow, that's why you do it, you know what I mean? So it's
yeah. I think
important,
that's
like people like yourself, like me, get the message out. You know, there is an answer. If you're looking for something in life, there is an answer, and it's not the latest cult. There's nothing like that. You don't need any of that. It's just meditate, open yourself up. You know, to the outside to the spirit realm. That's all the answers. Ask for the answers. How you're looking for. They're all there. You've just got to be open to it. So
yeah. Look within. That's what they used to say in ancient Egypt. They used to say there was a phrase that was very popular, that all the answers are within you.
yeah,
And it's
that's it.
certainly true that you have to look into your own consciousness to find
Yeah,
answers. Like, I traveled around the world. I've been around the world 4 times. I've lived for about, I think it was 4 years outside of New Zealand. Some 3 of those years were spent in non-English speaking places, and I had a really good time. But I realized that that wasn't the answers I was looking for.
yeah,
I scoured the world for just. I didn't meet anybody who really struck me as knowing what was actually going on. And so
Mm.
I had to look within. I was forced to look within on account of the failure of every other option. And that's
Yeah,
why I think if we talk about things like this, we can make it a lot easier for people who are otherwise floundering in the dark.
yeah, that is
Yeah,
true.
I think there is a great awakening happening right now. It's not just us as individuals,
Mm.
but a great collective awakening. You see, a lot of people seem to be influenced by not direct messages, but by what Rupert Sheldrake calls morphogenetic fields, where
All
you
right.
just kind of you're linked to other human beings, but not by material means, by some kind of metaphysical channel, such that if 100 people in a locality they learn something, let's say they learn consciousness is the prima materia, then the other people in their locality can come to realize this as well without being directly told.
Mm.
And that's why I think the this kind of work is so valuable, because we never know that we could raise the collective frequency of the whole world just by that little amount that was necessary to overcome some threshold, and then perhaps a much more peaceful or pleasant age would begin. Because I found this life so difficult when you turn on the television and the whole thing is about materialism. There's
Mm.
nobody, I've never seen anybody on television who has a show like this, not one single time.
No.
I've been watching it
Mm.
since I was a little kid until I was about 20 when I stopped watching it. And
Yeah.
it's not there to give people answers. And that's why I think we can do something so good. Also, there are so many liars as well. Like once you start to go down the path of spirituality, there's so many people who are trying to drag you into their cult for the sake of their own political influence, or there are people who just want money off you.
Mm.
And so it's real easy to become cynical. I think a lot of people open themselves up to spirituality, but then get put off again by all the grifters and con men and other crooks who are sort of in this sphere.
Mm.
So I think it's great for us to talk without, having a. I don't want anybody to pay me for this show. I'm happy to just talk.
Yeah. I was going to say something then. When you were talking, I had an idea, and oh, it's gone now. Oh,
Was it
when I,
about the Great Awakening?
yes, yes, it was. Actually, it was.
Yeah.
I had a vision. I sometimes get visions. Not you see something in your mind, and it stays there till you address it, so to speak. And I had one showing this spirituality is basically, how can I say, below the viewpoint of the modern world, so to speak. It's sort of like below it as a general trend. Yeah, generally it's always
Mm,
below the materialistic world.
yep.
I was shown it's going to break through. It's going to be a big breakthrough of it, and I don't really know in what way, but I know that it's coming, and it's going to change. It's going to change the world in a sense. It's going to start to. Um, it is going to start to change it. I'm not sure. I don't know in what way, but I know it's going to happen. I was shown that, and it was there in my mind for a week until I actually addressed that I was seeing it, and then I spoke to someone. I said about it, and then it just went done. So I thought I've done my purpose now. I've told people about it, and so I don't know what way, but I know it's going to happen. And getting back to the spiritual warfare and vibration, that was one of the things I was shown when there's people out there who, including ourselves, we put out bad vibrations, we put out good vibrations. Spiritual warfare, amongst as well about evil and good people as well, is basically the good vibrations, vibration, like fighting against each other, like fighting in a sense. It's a warfare.
Yep.
And every so often, if you believe in angels or if you don't, the angels will come along. Anything is becoming too strong, they step in. No, wipe that clean, and then we move on a bit like that because stuff like that. So what is your view on the spiritual warfare? Do you think it is like that, or do you think it's different, or that's what I was sort of shown anyway?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I was actually talking about spiritual warfare on the show I was on earlier tonight, the
All
one I
right.
was doing with Bob Dub and another friend of ours named Julian. It was we call it the Free Will Under Attack edition. Our show's
Mm.
called It's Elemental. And we were talking about specifically spiritual warfare.
Oh.
And when I think about spiritual warfare, I think there's really two different ways you can lose, spiritually speaking. You can lose from factors within your own consciousness, in other words, the decisions you make,
Yeah.
and you can also lose from factors coming from without, such as the environment. Like I was born into an environment where there was nobody who believed in spirituality, and so I grew up quite naturally thinking that spirituality was for crazy people,
Yeah.
and didn't really think about it until after the mushroom trip. But what I realized looking back on it was that I had been the victim of spiritual warfare, and I had the
Hmm.
reason why I was lying awake at night worrying about death was because spiritual warfare had destroyed my natural inborn, like you say, silver cord, the connection to the
Yeah.
great beyond. And mine may not have been severed, but it was definitely buried under enough accretions that I didn't perceive its existence. So I come to realize it's a great relief. That's why I say that I believe in what Aldous Huxley said about the fundamental rightness of the universe. That the universe is a fundamentally all right place to be, even though we're all going to die, because it's not the main thing to live forever. The main thing is to live in the right fashion.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense as well. Yeah, a lot of sense.
yeah. It's
Um,
great how things make more sense. Like if I try and explain things from a spiritual perspective, it makes a lot more sense now. Like there's a lot of things from the materialist perspective that just didn't add up. It wasn't just a
yeah,
consciousness thing, but people's motivations as well. Like why people did the things they did. You couldn't really explain it unless they had perhaps a bit of demonic influence or a bit of angelic influence.
yeah.
The simple human thing wasn't enough. But that's where I think it starts to get complicated.
So, do you believe in angels, demons, stuff like that?
Yeah, I
Like
believe
any?
in everything.
Yeah,
I believe in
that's
everything.
good.
I believe in higher
Good.
dimensions. I believe in gods. I believe in the asuras from the Hindu tradition. I think it's all possible.
Yeah,
Like my philosophy, which is known as elementalism, I call it elementalism. We believe in what's called the great fractal, which is to say there are infinite number of higher dimensions which contain everything you could ever possibly imagine or perceive or conceive of. So yeah, I believe in every possible angel, every possible demon. They're all out there somewhere, somewhere in the greater reality. Those beings exist and perhaps can influence our lives directly.
yeah. Oh God, I gotta say something. I keep getting ideas. All right, I'm gonna say, and then it goes on my head. Uh, oh, I've got to say something.
It's hard when you're dealing with such heavy topics.
Yeah, no, it's just I've been like this. It's like the last few weeks I've started to hit like walls when I've been interviewing, whereas before that I used to flow through an hour or I'd be poof, gone. But it's just happened a lot this last few weeks, probably because my energy levels have been so sapped, so to speak. Um, oh, I was going to say something there. Something you said, and I thought, oh yeah, I want to speak about that, and it's gone again. Oh damn it! What was it?
Spiritual warfare we were talking about, and
Yeah, um, yeah, it was to do with that. It
yeah,
was.
uh, I was talking about the factors. Sometimes your own soul can bring you down if
Yeah,
you're of a low frequency.
yeah. The spiritual connection, as I see it, is like they call it the silver cord, so to speak. And I believe that is like, in a physical sense, like an umbilical cord. It's sending
Mm.
information back to the, and you're receiving information. You can send information. It's like a two-way thing. And when you're like open, awake in spirituality, it can be an amazing thing. But when you suppress that, which most people in life do, that's when you start have your problems. That's when you become ill. A lot of it, you can't self heal. You can't. It just leads to a great shithole of problems, basically. You know what I mean? It's just, in my view, you know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah,
I just wish I could make people understand it more. You know what I mean? But there we go. You can't save everybody, so to speak. Well, you wish you could, but you
yeah,
can't.
part
But
of the system we're in.
yeah, it is. Yeah,
Like psychiatry, the psychiatry actually means healing of the soul.
yeah.
Psyche means soul.
Oh, I didn't
Psychiatry
know that.
means healing of. Yeah, yeah. Well, not many people do because most
Yeah,
people assume it's just about giving pills out because
yeah,
that's what psychiatry seems to be reduced to is just giving out sedatives essentially. And you can go in there as someone. I mean, you could go in there and say, I can't sleep because I keep thinking about the fact I'm going to die.
yeah.
And instead of giving you any spiritual solace, they'll just give you drugs,
Yeah, it's
and
ridiculous.
that's really an example of how low our society's sunk.
Yeah.
You know, they would, a psychiatrist would never be somebody like us who would actually assuage someone's soul who was afraid of dying or afraid of the judgment of God or something like that.
Yeah. Again, I had something I was going to say. Oh yeah. God, my mind is awful today. Keeps drifting in and out of thinking. You say something. Oh yeah, I want to speak about that, and then boom, it's gone again. Um, so how do you think, as awakened people, we can help people in the future? How do you think? Where do you see us going forward? How do you think we can help turn this world
I
around
think
if we can?
the best thing we can do is to be happy because
Yeah.
that is what makes other people want to know what we know.
Ah, yeah. That's
Because
good.
if we have a good sense of humor, like if take the Buddha for example, all of the statues you see of the Buddha,
Yeah.
he's always laughing, he's always smiling,
Yeah.
because he realizes the cosmic joke. He realizes that this is just a play that the gods have dreamed up to entertain themselves, and it's not actually real in the
Yeah.
sense that you need to fundamentally worry about it. And I think that's what we can do. Just have a laugh
Mm.
and say, "Wow, isn't that an amazingly powerful illusion?" And that we all used to think was real, and just have a jolly good laugh about it.
Mm.
That way, people will look at us and they'll say, "I want what those guys have got."
Yeah.
Because they people otherwise they only want money, they only want power, and if you can have neither of those things but still be really happy, then
Mm.
people will start to think, hey, perhaps there's other things going on.
Mm. I do
Yeah, I
think.
think so. I think that's the best thing. And also just to talk about these topics so that people can hear them and have them normalized in their minds, have spirituality normalized instead of the soccer normalized or the buying things at the shop normalized, you know?
Yeah, well, with me starting these videos on the podcast as well, I started them primarily on a channel which was a horror channel, so to speak. I used to make ghost videos, but creepy music to them,
Right.
and I just sort of like stopped as my healing side developed. That just I thought there was no way I could do that anymore. I just couldn't do it, you know. But the, built up a huge channel around that, you know. It had 47 million views. It's a massive channel.
Oh,
So I
awesome.
started to do my interviews like this, and I started doing my podcast a bit later on. And you know, some people on there, a few people on you do like them, yes. But then I got guided. But it's funny enough, talking with someone in an interview, I was talking to someone pre-interview about doing an interview, and I was having a bad day because you get like, you sort of like trying to make the videos, and you know you're guided to do them, and you start off with a certain amount of views, and your views are going down and down and down because you basically put them in a channel where people don't want to see them, basically. And I remember one day just saying to somebody, "Oh, I should just make another channel." As soon as I saw that, I got a vision showing me if I made another channel, it's going to fly, it's going to take off really
Right.
fast. And I thought to myself, "Wow, that's only going to mean one thing." So I
Yep.
created that channel that night, moved all my stuff over to my new channel, and it's not really taken off yet, but I know that it's going to. It's showing signs of it. It's little things, you know. It's and it's getting to the stage now. Got to a point. I said to my big channel, right, in future videos like this are going on my new channel. They're not going on my old channel anymore. They're going on my new channel.
Right.
And I've just been when I started that, then I got shown no, you got to go full hog. You got to do it, and now from next year everything's going on my new channel, and I'll
Yep.
just wait and see until it takes off because it will take off because um this is the reason I'm doing it. It's to reach people. It's to and I realized trying to do it in my old platform like a ghost channel environment. It's not going to work because um it's the wrong environment for it. It's the wrong environment, you know. Whereas I'm putting it in a
Yep.
new environment, a niche channel. It's gonna take off. I know it's gonna fly. I know it's going to, and I've shown it anyway before I even created a channel. It was going to take off. So once you have a message like that, you know there's only one thing you've got to do. So that's what I've done. And as time's gone on, I've been pushed now. Go on, New Year, full hog, new channel, and this interview is actually the first one that's going to be solely on my new channel. But I'm going to share it on my other channel. So it's going to be like a period of transition for people to come over if they want to. You know, I'm going to do that. But
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I get guided to do, and that's what I'm doing it. And I was shown this is the reason I'm doing it, to share it in an antisocial environment, and that's to get them, and that's what I'm one of the reasons I'm here for to do it. Um,
it's great that you've got that meaning.
yeah,
You know,
it was a calling. It was a calling when I started my original channel. That was a complete calling. That took a
yeah,
month of me resisting it before I actually did it. I had no clue about YouTube, and I didn't have a clue. I couldn't know how to make them. I had about a month of like every night in bed, vision of me making videos. I thought, what the heck? I don't know how to make videos. Like a light bulb being switched on. Even dreams, all sorts of stuff. And I had a
yeah.
month of this, and eventually I said, right, if I can get taught how to do this, I will make them. 2 nights perfect sleep. I thought, oh, it's over with. The sun comes up. He said to me, I'm a YouTuber. I thought, are you? And he said, I'll show you how to get started. He took me started. Again, 2 weeks, I fought it. Same thing. I made my first video, biggest relief of my life. And it's gone from there. It was calling to do it. And so I was the first of many callings I've had, but that was the first one I had to do. So that's how
Nice.
it all
I've
started,
actually,
you know?
I've actually felt something quite similar. I don't know if you've ever read "Thus Spake Zarathustra" by Friedrich Nietzsche,
No, I don't read books
a
much. I
philosophy
never,
book.
no.
Right. Well, in this book, the main character Zarathustra, when he turns 30 years old, he decides that he's had enough of the world, and the world doesn't appeal to him anymore because he's indulged in everything. So he goes and lives in the mountains for 10 years. And I did something exactly like this because by the time I was 30, I'd been around the world a few times. You know, I'd drank a whole lot of booze. I'd sleep with a bunch of women. I'd even been married and divorced. You know, I'd got a couple of degrees. I'd lived a life, but I'd realized that I still felt what you referred to as that calling. I still was a seeker. You know, I was still looking for something.
Yeah,
And then in the 10 years while I was in the mountains, taking a lot of psychedelics, and I spent a lot of time under the moon, just up at night. I was up during the whole night sometimes and sleeping during the day. I'd just sit there under the moon, smoking cannabis, meditating. It
yeah,
was awesome. But then when I got to age 40, I had the same thing as Zarathustra. He realized that all of this knowledge he has actually doesn't have any value unless he shares it with people.
yeah,
And he looks as the sun. The sun rises one morning, and he says, "Oh, great star, what would your happiness be had you not those for who you shine?" And I really, something about that phrase when I was reading this book touched my soul, and I realized that I was doing the same thing. I was on the same, like the Zarathustra was like a prophecy of my own life.
yeah.
And when I hit 40, which was a couple of years ago, I started doing videos and started talking to people a lot more about the things that I'd come to understand were true. Because when I first took the psychedelics, I had a lot of information dumped into my head,
Yeah,
but it took me about 8 or 10 years before I really come to integrate it all.
yeah.
So that's why I say that's why I'm not necessarily saying that everybody out there should do psychedelics. You have to be
No,
prepared
no, no.
for perhaps 6 or 8 years of transition from a state of materialism to a state of awareness.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to really think about it if you're going to do something that major.
So your books, are they to do with your awakening, or are they to do with other subjects? Because I haven't read any of your books actually.
Broad range of subjects,
Yeah,
but primarily they're to do with things psychological because that's what
yeah,
I studied at university. That's what I'm really an expert in. So there's a bit of politics in there, but there is a lot of spirituality as well. Because the
yeah,
more I came to study psychology, the more I came to realize that things like the questions of consciousness, essentially, they're spiritual questions. They're not actually scientific questions once you come to understand them properly.
yeah,
So I do write a lot about spirituality and things that I've realized and things about various traditions because some of the other traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism and Confucianism, Taoism, they particularly interest me. So I
yeah,
write about some of those. But all of the spiritual philosophy I've put in one particular book called Elementalism, which is really a summary of all of the spiritual thoughts I've had, all
right,
of the spiritual realizations I've had, and
yeah,
I've tried to put it in a sense that what it really is the perennial philosophy. So the same philosophy that keeps breaking through, as you put it, and keeps breaking through into this world, and has done ever since the first real spiritual insight. The first person was ever awakened thousands of years ago. So I've tried to in elementalism, I've tried to create a version of the perennial philosophy for the modern time, for
Yeah.
somebody just like us who were born into very materialistic circumstances,
Mm.
and hopefully some people can read it and find some solace in the answers. Because I can tell you that truly, this life is a great thing, and there's no reason to feel a state of despair at the fact that we all must grow old and die. There are actually ways that you can think about it, so you realize it's nothing to be afraid of.
Mm.
You know, things really are all good at the end of the day.
Mm. True. That's very true. Perhaps
Yeah,
you could email me your some of your links for your books and stuff. I can share them on my description when I upload this. If that's okay with you, if you want me to.
yeah, no problem.
That'd be
You
good
know, I
because
can. I'll send a link to elementalism and to my company page because on my company
yeah.
page I put up all my essays. I
Okay.
write an essay every couple of days, often
All
about
right.
spiritual
I'd be
topics. So
interested to read that as well. I didn't know that.
yeah, well, there's like 1,500 essays up there. I've been doing them since 2017, so there's a lot to read. You could read that for months if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
and I've
time
covered
is always my
all of my
thing.
thoughts about
my
yeah,
my
all of my thoughts
biggest.
about spiritual warfare is up there.
All right.
So there's a lot. There's a lot of information, and that's my company page, my publishing
Right.
company's main page. So I'll
Yeah.
send that to you as
Definitely be interested in seeing that. I was going to say something again. I'm awful today. So again, what you were saying, oh yeah, that makes sense. I thought, oh, I'm going to speak about that, and then boof, it's gone again.
well.
It's probably because I'm winding down because it's the last interview I'm doing before next year, so it's probably I'm not like in the zone, so to speak, as I usually am. Um, oh, what was I going to say there?
Could be winter solstice tomorrow for you. That's
Yeah, shortest
perhaps
day tomorrow. Yeah, shortest day with
yeah,
us
that's
tomorrow.
perhaps
Yeah,
slowing things down.
yeah, it could be. Yeah, could be.
I
Definitely
know
lower
when I lived
energy the
in
last week or so. I don't know what's going
I
on.
know when I lived in Europe, it was my brain would slow down in the winters. I could feel it.
Yeah, I always look forward to the shortest day because I know after that everything's going to get the nights are going to get longer, and I always look forward to that. I
Yeah, yeah,
do like it being light till 9, 10 at night. I do enjoy that. Do so
yeah,
much more in the evenings and stuff. Do some pot around and outside and whatever. You should play
yeah,
basketball with my son in the summer holidays. So the winter you can't do it. Time he gets home from
yeah,
school it's dark, so you sort of pretty much
yeah.
bugger like. But yes, that's what I'm going to say to you. I know you do the show with Bob and is it just
Julian.
Julian? Yeah. Um, if you're ever open to have a guest on there, I'd like to sit in on one of them shows with if you ever do. I know it's always been the three of you doing. I've seen one or two of them. I haven't seen them all, but it's just something you think about.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, if you ever
that'd
want
be
a
awesome.
guest, I'd be interested in joining. Just be quite
Yeah,
curious about that.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Because we have a theme for each show that we do,
right.
and we could do one on healing, in particular, spiritual healing.
Yeah, no,
True
I'd be.
psychiatry
I
could be
know
a
a
good
little bit
topic.
about that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I'd gathered would be great subject for you,
Yeah,
and you could talk about how you can heal others and how you can heal yourself
yeah,
spiritually.
yeah, yeah. I can do that.
Yeah,
I will say though, as much as healing is concerned, with me, it affects by certain levels of my awakening how I can heal. You know,
yeah,
like sometimes I can remote heal, and then I can go 6 months where I just cannot do it at all because I'm in a different stage of development because I'm growing and I will say that, but yeah, yes, I've been up for. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Definitely be up for that.
yeah.
Only trouble is, um, after tomorrow, my son's home from school for till next year, so I'm sort of pretty much I can't really. I might be able to sit in one or two. If you do, I don't know if you're doing stuff over Christmas. Anyway, maybe you're stopping for Christmas anyway. I don't know what you're doing, but it's going to
We're
be a
not
bit
sure either,
awkward.
actually.
Yeah,
Well, we're not sure. Actually, we're not sure
I'm
either.
sure.
Actually,
Yeah,
we hadn't discussed it, so
because
we might have
our old
to.
man's talking show got stopped for Christmas because Roger
Yeah,
wanted to rest, and he's doing about 4 or 5 shows a day. He's going crazy. I thought I actually said to him, I thought you were having the rest. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Sometime in January could be possible.
yeah.
We'll get
Okay, well,
you on.
definitely. If you want to speak to the others, don't know who's in. Do you just run it solely jointly between the three of you? Is it or?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
it'll be
I'd
run
definitely be
between
up
the
for it
three of us.
anyway. Definitely.
Yeah,
We'll,
yeah. But
we'll
I'm
sort that
I'm
out
sure
tomorrow.
they'll agree because they know who you are.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah. Bob does. Yeah. Bob, yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't met
yeah,
Julian yet, but
Yeah.
but I've seen his
You
show.
seen
I've seen
your
him on
you
video.
seen
Yeah,
yeah, cool. Awesome. All right, that sounds like a plan.
yeah, definitely a bit for that. Definite. What am I going to say now? My mind's gone blank again. I don't know if I should end this soon because when I get stats again at that stage, it's like that's it. Wrap it up. Um, Anything you want to share when I try and get my mind together? For anything else you want to
The
share?
only last thing, the only last thing I'd like to share is just a Merry Yule for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, and enjoy the summer for those of you in the South. And remember that the universe is a fundamentally all right place to be, and all suffering is temporary,
Mm,
and all of us get what we need in the end, no matter how torturous the path is. So stay positive.
that's really good. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah,
There we are. I think I'm going to end it now because my mind's gone blank, and that usually means
all good.
yeah.
It's all
But
good,
what I'll
mate.
do, I'll say to you, but if you stay online, I'm going to end the interview. I just want to share one or two things with you off recording, if that's okay. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
All right. Goodbye,
So,
internet.
cheers.
See you
Bye,
next time.
internet. Bye. Let me just stop this.